All right, so let's talk about the Trent Williams situation. It's fascinating how sort of the narrative has changed. Before training camp, when all this sort of came about, we're like, all right, he's pissed off, but you know what? They'll find a compromise. Pass up game checks. They'll probably tweak the guaranteed money maybe in the second year. And when it's all said and done, Trent Williams is probably going to be there come week one. Now suddenly the thinking is, I don't want to speak for you, but this seems to be the narrative that we're getting. Yeah, this isn't really going to work out. The team's not going to budge. Trent's not going to budge. And eventually they're going to have to trade him.
Yeah, that seems to be where the narrative is certainly headed. And I don't know that anything for Williams I don't think anything has changed, because the stuff that he told people in the off season and has told teammates, it suggests that he was never going to play here. And I know Jason La Canfora had that back in June.
Yep.
And I had was told that over the last month and a half or so. I had been told that as well, and that's what he told people. But even some of those people were like, I still think he might show up here. And I don't know, it's hard to know, are you having hopeful thinking, wishful thinking, or do you feel like maybe he would come back? And I know from the Redskins' perspective, I don't want to say didn't take it as serious, but didn't feel like it had risen to a certain point, because when you look at their free agency plans, you look at their draft plans, it didn't reflect the fact that Trent Williams might not be back.
Right.
And so I think that's where I don't know that they believe that it would go to this point. And, I always thought, too, even before camp, and I wrote this in a couple of things, that if anything was really going to happen, it would be late August, which makes the most. And talking to people over there, too, their feeling was, now, things can happen anytime. If they got a great deal, he could be gone tomorrow. But typically, chances are it would be late August when teams are desperate, et cetera. But a lot more dug in than people. I still think it's really hard to know until, and this is the other part I would say too, I don't know that really anything has changed, because you really have to see how willing are you to miss those game checks. That's what is going to hurt somebody. That's over $600K for him. Right now, these fines in camp are almost irrelevant, because if he returns here, those would almost assuredly be waived. Mm-hmm. So he wouldn't miss any of that money. But it's those game checks when you really, really, really test that resolve.
John, potentially huge news yesterday that running back Derrius Guice not cleared to play yet in games, according to Jay Gruden. What's the latest on him? Do you think he'll be there week one against Philly? Will he be cleared basically in 3 weeks?
I think he would. I mean, just my sense just watching him is that I think he would be, because, he's been a full participant in practices. He's he's done 11-on-11 work. He's just not cleared for full contact in a game. But he's been full. So we've seen him out there all the time doing stuff.
Weird.
So it is. I just, I think I can't say that he looks like he's exactly who he was last year before the injury. I think that still takes a little bit more time.
Definitely.
But and even Adrian Peterson was saying yesterday, he kind of said some of the same stuff, that there's still some rust he's shaking off, and still some things that you have to learn to trust.
Yep.
And I think that's part of it too. But I would be surprised if he was still not cleared when the season starts. Just because it seemed like, even with Gruden last week said that they hope to get him in maybe in a couple weeks, which sounds like a third preseason game.
Right.
So yeah, I would be surprised if he wasn't cleared, but I've been surprised before.
So weird for a guy to be cleared to practice where you're cutting and everything, and also where you're in there. And I don't know if they have the same terminology in the pros. I assume they do. I remember when we were visiting Maryland practice, and Edsel was teaching us about, a thud day, a thump day versus, full tackle and all that. Because he's been in there for, thud and thump or whatever, right, for the Skins.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some of that. And, so, yeah, that's why I was a little bit surprised to hear that yesterday. But I think it's just making sure. And I think when you have a guy who has a talent he does, I think they really, really want to make sure. So
just being cautious.
Yeah, and I don't know that even if he had been cleared for games last week, I don't know if he even would have played. So I would think he would be. But yeah, that surprised people yesterday.
John, we were getting into this argument with the guys, and JP's often the skeptic of the group, and sometimes I admit, even 25 years later, I still, I look at the Redskins with burgundy-colored glasses at times in the preseason, and I'm sort of maintaining, I think, if these guys pan out at all, I like the talent. Let's just talk about the offense. Forget about the defense. We all agree the defense is better. It should be on paper anyway. I think offensively, they did a pretty good job. I mean, if McLaurin is as good as advertised, Trey Quinn's been balling out. If Jordan Reed stays healthy, if you get Guice cleared with AP and Chris Thompson, I mean, certainly you've got to step back at quarterback, but these guys are going to take more chances, I think, than Alex. I like this group offensively more than I did last year.
Well, I do too, for a simple reason that they're healthy. Last year you had a known commodity, proven, whatever you want to think of Alex Smith, you knew who he was.
Right.
So you knew going into the season what you had at that position. He was the clear number one guy. That's a big change, obviously, from this year because you're having Dwayne Haskins, a rookie. You have Keim, inexperienced in the system, and then Colt McCoy, who has his own health issues with that leg. So I think that's a big change. But the big difference is last year at this time, Jordan Reed was not healthy. Chris Thompson admitted he was not healthy, and he even told me a couple weeks ago that he never felt healthy at all at any point last year. So that's a change, and those two are such a pivotal part of this offense, and that passing game centers around Jordan Reed, and he looks really good. So I think you want a good sign, that's a good sign. And I know everybody say, well, how long is he going to stay healthy? Well, who knows? But over the last couple of years, he's been at least 12 games except for the 1 year. I think it was 11 or 12 games except for 1 year. So they can get 12 to 13 games out of him. That would be a really big boost. So that's where the optimism lies. And I think that right side of the center to the right side of the line should be pretty solid. It's that left side of the line where you have the big concerns, and I think that's where some of that optimism is dulled because you don't know how that's going to go and what the effect is going to be with who's at guard and who's at tackle. And, and it maybe more so even at tackle because I think ultimately, eventually, I think Wes Martin will be that guy at left guard, especially if Eric Flowers remains as inconsistent as he's been. But left tackle will be the question, and then which of those receivers will emerge? And I do like McLaurin, and I think Trey Quinn will be good, but Trey Quinn has to stay healthy too. So I think there's too many of these guys have that has to stay healthy, and everybody's got to stay healthy, but too many of these guys have shown that will they stay healthy? That's where it's like, you see that, but how long can you trust that? But yes, there is. I think if those guys are healthy, and if Guice is healthy and Peterson's there, then it can look a lot different than it does now. But they've got to answer the quarterback, and they've got to answer that left side.